The flood took everything except her. She waited on the rooftop for 2 nights, soaked and shaking. Everyone begged him not to go back. But Bill had already lost too much in this life. Part 1. The Rooftop. Franklin County, Virginia, September 18th, 2023. The rain did not stop for 3 days. It came hard and sideways, beating on the tin roof like war drums. By the time the creek behind Bill Harper's house turned black and angry, it was too late. He had seen floods before. Born in 47, Bill had watched the river take the bridge twice in his lifetime. But this one was different. This one came fast, like it had something to prove. His dog, Sandy, knew it too. She paced the kitchen in tight circles, whining low in her throat. Golden Retriever, 9 years old, still quick on her feet, but with a grey chin and cloudy eyes. She had been through storms before, but this one rattled her bones. By the time they opened the front door, the porch was gone. Bill did not have a phone that worked anymore. Power was out. No sirens. Just the low growl of water chewing up the land. He grabbed a flashlight. A thermos. Sandy's leash. She would not move, not even when the water licked the front steps. "Sandy," he said, voice cracking like old wood, "we gotta go." Still she would not move. So he picked her up. That is when the floor shook, just once, like a cough in the earth's throat. Then came the splintering sound of a tree falling. Not near, but not far either. Something shifted in Bill's chest. He looked at her eyes, those steady, deep amber wells, and knew she was not leaving. He should be tied her leash, should be carried her out into the mud, should be done anything but what he did next. He put her down. "I will come back," he whispered. "You wait. You are good at waiting." And she was. Sandy waited on the roof. The back porch collapsed an hour after he left. He watched it fall from the ridge above town, where the volunteer fire department had set up temporary shelter. Folks were clumped together, wrapped in army blankets. Children stared. The men muttered about flood insurance, generators, old debts. But Bill only watched the ridge and the house that sat below it. His house, his and Mary's. They built it in 78 with their own hands, pine boards. Tin roof, hand dug well. The house sagged now, water up to the windows. But the roof still held, and she was up there. Sandy, a golden blur pacing the peak, front paws pressed to the chimney. Tail still. "Don't be stupid," the fire chief warned. "You go down there. You do not come back. I ain't afraid of that." "You should be." Bill did not answer. His knees ached, hips shot, heart like a bird in a cage. But none of that mattered. Not when she was still looking for him. He slipped away just before dawn, past the school buses turned into shelters, past the National Guardsmen and their yellow tape. The town was half underwater. Franklin Creek had swollen into a monster brown, heaving, full of twisted branches and gas tanks. Bill found his old Ford parked sideways near the feed store. He drove slow, headlights off, tires slipping on what was once Main Street. He passed the Baptist church, the laundromat, the Shell station where he used to sit with Mary and drink hot coffee from a paper cup. All of it was underwater now. The truck stopped short 2 miles down the road, a washed-out bridge. He left it running, took his walking stick, and stepped into the waist-high flood. Cold, bitter, alive, Every step was a memory. Mary with her apron in the garden, Sandy as a pup chewing his boot, the Christmas he sat alone for the first time. And now this. By the time he reached the base of the hill, the sky had turned a soft steel grey. The house was still there, half rotted, but standing. And so was she, Sandy. Her ears twitched when she saw him. She barked one sharp cry and stood up. Bill waved with both arms, fighting the pull of the water. He started climbing. The back fence had collapsed. He used the edge of the porch as a step and grabbed the gutter. His shoulder screamed. His hip gave a pop like dry ice. But he hauled himself up. He was on the roof. And then he was face to face with her. She did not bark again. She did not move, just placed her wet head against his chest and sighed. For the first time in 48 hours, Bill Harper cried. Not for the house, not for the town, but for the simple, terrifying truth that he had almost left her behind. Part 2. The rain isn't done yet. Franklin County, Virginia. Morning, September 19th, 2023. The roof felt slick under Bill's boots. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but everything still shimmered with water shingles. Chimney. Sandy Ace Fur. He sat down slowly, legs trembling, the wind cutting through his soaked flannel. Sandy curled beside him, pressing her body into his thigh like she always did on cold nights. I told you I would come back, he said softly. She gave a low huff, tail tapping once against the metal gutter. They sat like that a long time, two old souls with more behind them than ahead, balanced on the edge of a drowned world. Below, the water swirled through the yard like angry tea. A red gas floated by. A door, maybe from the neighbor's shed. The swing set that Mary had put up for the grandkids was half submerged. Chains twisted like someone had been fighting to hold on. Bill watched it all without blinking. Sandy shifted, whined. Her legs were shaking now, not from cold, but fatigue. She had not eaten, probably had not slept either. Her ribs showed more than he remembered. He fumbled in his coat pocket, found the crushed granola bar he would taken from the shelter, opened it with stiff fingers, broke it in half. Here, he whispered. You first. She sniffed, took it gently, chewing with the care of an old dog that knew how to ration. He ate the rest without tasting it. The wind picked up again, pulling at the edge of the tin. A sharp groan echoed from somewhere inside the house. The structure was giving, piece by piece. Damn thing's gonna come down, he muttered. He looked around. The fire department had left. No boats, no figures on the ridge, just the echo of water, the occasional crack of timber falling downstream. He was alone, except for her. And now the real problem. They could not get down. The porch was gone, the fence too. The water was too fast now to wade, and he could not carry her like before. His left arm had gone numb sometime in the climb. Shoulders shot. Hips worse. But the worst part was not the pain. It was the knowing that coming back for her might have been the end for both of them. And still he would do it again, in a heartbeat, because he remembered something Mary used to say when he brought home strays. Cats, mostly. Once a baby raccoon. Bill, you have got more room in that heart than this house can hold. He touched Sandy's head. She blinked up at him, soft and trusting. No fear. You are not going out scared. he thought. Not on my watch. He looked toward the tree line beyond the creek. If they could reach it, there'd be higher ground. He would see in a boat their once-old aluminum thing, chained to a dock long since rotted. If the flood had loosened it, worth a try. He stood, knees crackling, and studied the path, from roof to shed, from shed to tree, from tree to hope. A rough plan, but better than waiting for the roof to split under them. He leaned down. Sandy, I need you strong now. Just a little more. Can you do that for me, girl? She rose, legs trembling but straight. Her tail wagged, tired but certain. He led her to the edge of the roof. The shed sat crooked below, its tin top torn halfway open like a peeled sardine can. If he dropped down right, maybe it would hold them. Sandy, go first, he whispered. I will be right behind. She did not hesitate. With a practiced jump old training kicking in, she landed hard on the shed's roof. It dipped under her weight, groaned, but did not collapse. Bill held his breath. She looked up at him. Waiting, he muttered a prayer to no one in particular and stepped off. His boot hit metal, slid. He fell forward, hands catching on the edge. Pain flared in his side. White hot, but he held. They crawled to the edge and jumped this time into shallow flood water up to their waists. The current fought them, pulling at his coat, swirling around her legs. But Sandy pushed ahead, nose low, shoulders steady. He followed, step by aching step. They reached the tree line after what felt like hours. Breathless, bruised, alive. The boat was there, half submerged. But there, the chain had snapped. It bobbed lightly against a tree trunk, waiting like it had been told to stay. He hauled Sandy in first, then himself. They did not speak. The current caught them. The world passed in slow-motion barns, silos, floating chairs, tire swing. Bill held the rope tight with one good arm, the other round her, and as they drifted through the flood, he looked at her one last time and said, "You waited for me. Now I will get you home." Part 3. The River Doesn't Forget. Franklin County, Virginia. Later that same day, September 19th, 2023. The boat drifted slowly at first, caught in a lazy current, like the flood was too tired to fight anymore. But Bill knew better. The river was waiting to remind him of everything he had not done right. He sat hunched in the back, one hand gripping the splintered side of the old John boat, the other holding Sandy close against his hip. She was breathing hard but steady, her head resting on his thigh like a warm stone. Ahead, the world had turned into a watercolor, trees blurred at the roots, fences sunken beneath brown waves. Here and there, the rooftop of a shed or a mailbox stuck up like fingers reaching for help. Bill's fingers were numb. He could not tell if it was the cold or his age. He looked at Sandy. She blinked up at him, slow. Still there. Still with him. "You always were a better swimmer than me," he murmured. She licked his hand once. Not playful, just a touch. Like saying, "I am still here. Keep going." They floated past a field he recognized. Used to be Henderson's soybean farm. Now just flat, open water stretching all the way to the highway. A tire floated by. A cow, bloated and belly up, bobbed in the distance. Bill turned his head. Some things you do not need to look at twice. The wind picked up again, colder this time. The sky sagged under grey weight. A new band of rain was coming in from the west. He needed to find land. High ground. A place to wait. Just up ahead, he spotted a stretch of trees thick, old ones rising from a rocky hill that had somehow resisted the flood. A patch of green still clung to the top, and what looked like an old hunting blind sat crooked near a pine. He leaned forward, shifted his weight. "Hang on, girl. We are heading in." The boat rocked as he dipped an oar into the water, just a broken branch. "Really?" and began to steer. Each pull burned through his shoulder. Each breath felt shorter than the last. But the trees were getting closer, so he kept going. He was not thinking about what came next. About food, shelter, help. He did not care. Right now, it was just him and Sandy. One more hill to climb, one more place to rest. The boat scraped against something solid, a gravel patch, maybe a washed-out service road. He let it drift up as far as it would go, then grabbed Sandy under the chest and lifted. She did not resist. Together, they climbed the embankment, slipping on wet moss, pulling each other forward. At the top, the blind was still standing more or less. It was half collapsed. Roof sagging, floor missing a plank or two, but it was dry, and for now, that was enough. Bill eased himself down onto the wood and pulled Sandy into his lap. He did not care that she was soaked, muddy, trembling. She was warm, alive. That is what mattered. He leaned back, head against the beam, and closed his eyes. For a while, he just listened. The wind in the trees, the distant roar of water. Sandy's breath, slow and steady, and something else, memory. It came like floodwater of its own. Mary, standing at the edge of the river 30 years ago. Young then, barefoot, holding a fishing pole and grinning at him like he was the last good man on earth. "You and me," she said, "we are not afraid of rivers." He had believed that once, but now he knew rivers do not care what you are afraid of. They just take. They take time. They take people. And if you let them, they will take pieces of your soul. Bill rubbed his eyes. They burned more than they should be. "You remember her, do not you?" he asked. Sandy lifted her head. "You were just a pup when she passed. But you sat right by her side, like you knew." The dog gave a small, almost human sigh. Bill smiled faintly. "Maybe you did." He looked out over the water again. The rain was returning slow at first, like a warning, but the clouds were thick, and the wind had a howl to it. They did not have long. He scanned the treetops. No cell towers. No smoke. No movement. He was too far out, and too old to run. But he could do one more thing. He took off his coat, tucked it under Sandy's belly to keep her warm, then reached into his shirt pocket. A whistle. Metal. Heavy. Worn smooth from years of use. It had been his in the fire department, back when he still ran into buildings instead of away from them. Back when he still believed saving someone made you whole again. He put it to his lips and blew 3 long blasts. Waited. Nothing. He blew again. Still nothing. But on the 3rd round, just before he gave up, he heard it, a faint sound in the distance. Not thunder, not wind. An engine. Bill stood, eyes scanning the water. Then there, a boat. Far out, red stripe along the side, a man in an orange vest. Standing, pointing. They would hurt him. They were coming. He dropped to his knees, pulled Sandy close, and whispered, "They are coming, girl. I told you I would get you home." And for the first time since the rain began, she wagged her tail slow but sure. Part 4, The Ride Home. Franklin County, Virginia, afternoon. September 19th, 2023. The rescue boat cut through the muddy water like a knife. It bounced over floating limbs and garbage, angling toward the hill where Bill and Sandy waited beneath the pines. Bill stood at the edge of the blind, waving both arms. The whistle still hung around his neck. He did not need it anymore, but somehow he could not take it off. A young man in his 20s guided the boat. Another sat near the front, holding a long pole. They looked like volunteers, lean, sunburnt, covered in sweat and silt. They reminded Bill of the boys he used to train with, back in the department, before his knees went and Mary got sick. When they were close enough, the one in front shouted, "You alone?" Bill patted Sandy. "Just me and the dog. Can you walk? I can fall forward and hope." He grunted. They laughed, but there was no cruelty in it, just relief. They pulled up to the slope, wedged the boat against a tree root. The taller one jumped out first, sloshing through ankle-deep water, and reached for Sandy. "She is light," Bill said, lifting her gently, but tired. The young man wrapped her in a dry towel, cradled her like a baby. "We will take care of her." The other helped Bill into the boat firm grip. No fuss. Bill sat down hard, back cracking. "Appreciate it, boys. No worries. We have been scanning this side since morning. Didn't expect anyone out this far. Didn't he expect to be?" "Either," Bill said, but she was waiting. The boat turned and headed back toward the ridge. The wind had shifted. Rain fell again, softer this time, like the worst had passed. But the river still growled beneath them. In some places, houses lay on their sides. Cars stuck out from treetops. A deer carcass drifted by, legs frozen in the air. No one spoke, until the younger man said quietly, "That is a good dog." Bill looked down. Sandy had curled against his boots. She was finally sleeping. Her paws twitched now and then, chasing something in dreams. "She is all I got left," Bill said. They did not ask what that meant. They did not need to. At the fire station, the parking lot had turned into a drop-off zone. Cots, towels, water jugs, canned food. People wandered like ghosts between folding tables. Some were barefoot. Some still wore their Sunday clothes from 3 days ago. As the boat pulled in, someone called out, "It is Harper." A few turned to look. An old man with a cane waved. "Bill Harper, is that you? Most of me?" Bill replied. Sandy was lifted out first, wrapped in blankets, carried like treasure. They gave her water, dry kibble, a plastic crate with a soft mat. She did not whimper. She just curled into a ball and closed her eyes, trusting the warmth. Bill stood nearby, watching. A nurse offered him soup. He waved it away. "I just want to sit," he said. They found him a metal chair near the flagpole. Someone brought a blanket. Another offered dry socks. The kindness made his throat tight, so he said nothing. For a while, he just watched the rain. He thought about Mary again, about how she used to sit on the porch during storms, humming Patsy Cline under her breath, like nothing in the world could touch her. Don't trust fast-moving water, she used to say. It has got a mind of its own. She was not wrong. That evening, the local vet came by Rachel Monroe. She would known Sandy since she was a pup, kneeling beside her crate. She whispered, "Well now, you look like you have been through the war." Bill leaned over her shoulder. She held up better than me. Rachel examined Sandy gently. Eyes, pores, heart, lungs. She is dehydrated and sore. Bit of fluid in the lungs. But she is tough. If she makes it through the night, she will be okay. She will make it, Bill said. Rachel nodded, then turned to him. And you do not look so steady. I have had worse. He muttered, rubbing his shoulder. I doubt that, she said. I will bring you something stronger than soup. He did not argue. Later, when most of the crowd had thinned, and the volunteers were stacking bottled water into neat rows, Bill sat alone beside Sandy's crate. The station smelled like wet socks, gasoline, and boiled potatoes. A generator hummed outside. Rain tapped on the tin roof like a steady metronome. Bill reached through the crate door, stroked Sandy's ear. I thought I lost you, he said. She opened one eye. But you waited. A pause. He swallowed. I did not wait for Mary. I left the room to get coffee and she went without me. He had not said that out loud in 3 years. Not even to the pastor. Not even to himself. The words hung there, soft and bitter. I could not bear it. He whispered. Thought I would see her face one last time. But when I came back, the room was quiet. Sandy licked his fingers once, slow, then closed her eyes again. He stayed beside her until morning. The rain stopped sometime around 3. He did not notice. By the time the sun came up, golden wide, Bill Harper was already awake, watching the light land on her fur, like it used to. Like home. Part 5. What is left behind. Franklin County, Virginia, September 21st, 2023. 2 days after the rescue, the water finally began to recede. Not all at once. Not cleanly. It left behind a mess: thick mud, twisted metal, garbage, the smell of oil and rot, and something else Bill could not name. Something old, like grief rising up through the floorboards. He stood beside a borrowed pickup truck, looking down the hollow where his house had once stood proud. The roof was still visible, but the west wall had collapsed. The chimney leaned. The porch was gone entirely. Sandy sat beside him in the truck bed, wrapped in an old quilt from the shelter. Neither of them moved for a long time. Bill did not know what he expected. He would lived in that house for 45 years, planted trees there, buried Mary's garden boots under the hydrangeas after she passed, hung every photo with his own hands. And now the place looked like something from a war movie. He finally stepped forward. The ground squished under his boots. Each step a struggle through knee-high muck. The smell grew worse the closer he got. Mildew. Gasoline. Dead animals. But he kept going. The front door was still hanging from one hinge. Inside, the waterline reached to his chest. He stepped in slowly, testing every board. Some gave, some held. He made it to the kitchen. The table had flipped. A chair floated sideways in the hallway. The cabinets hung open like mouths caught mid-sentence. His eyes landed on the far counter, a small metal coffee tin, with Mary's handwriting still on the label. Vanilla blend, do not touch. Bill. He picked it up with both hands. Heavy, sealed, somehow untouched. And just like that, he sat down in the wreckage and laughed. The sound came out dry and cracked, like something that had not been used in years. He laughed because life was strange. He laughed because she would have called him a stubborn old mule. He laughed because it was either that or cry. And then he cried anyway. He stayed most of the morning. Not to salvage things, there was little to take. The photos were gone. The bed was ruined. His fireman medals were likely buried in silt under the stairs. But he needed to be there to say goodbye, not just to the house, but to the life that was. The routines, the memories in the walls, the echoes of footsteps, the way Mary used to sing while scrubbing the sink, the way Sandy waited by the door, tail thumping when he returned from town. He said goodbye to all of it, softly, without words. Then he stood up, walked outside, and whistled. Sandy limped across the gravel. Her back legs were still stiff from the flood, but she came without hesitation. Always had. He bent down, scratched behind her ears. "Ain't much left, girl." She sniffed his pant leg, then looked up at the ruins without blinking. "I know," he said, "but we are not done yet." They drove back into town slowly. The roads were rough, cracked asphalt. Down branches, cones and tape everywhere. FEMA trucks rumbled past. Church volunteers handed out hot meals. Children played with donated toys in the parking lot of the high school gym. It looked like chaos, but it was hope in motion. At the shelter, they gave Bill a cot in the back room and offered him a voucher for a motel. He refused it. "I would rather be where folks are, where she can see people walking by." That night, Sandy curled on the blanket beside his bed. He did not sleep. Not fully. Instead, he stared at the ceiling tiles and thought about what came next. He was 76. No kids nearby. No house. No insurance. He could not afford the premium after Mary passed. Spent what little he had on meds, dog food, and fixing the porch last spring. He was not scared of being poor. He would been poor before. But being without that was different. No place to return to. No roof of his own. No porch light waiting to be turned off. The next morning, a knock came on the fire station door. It was Pastor Evans, holding a folded piece of paper. "Bill," he said, "I have been thinking about you and Sandy." Bill asked, wary. "We have got space behind the church. Old caretaker S trailer. It is nothing fancy, but it is dry. Safe. Couple folks helped clean it up yesterday. I think it is yours, if you want it." Bill did not answer at first. Not because he did not want it, but because the lump in his throat made speaking hard. When he finally nodded, the pastor just said, "Keys are on the table. Come when you are ready." He left the door open as he walked out. They moved into the trailer that afternoon. Sandy explored. Every inch of it, sniffed the corners, pawed at the shower mat, barked once at her own reflection in the oven door. Bill watched her, smiling. The place was small, just one bedroom. kitchenette, a cot, and a chair with uneven legs, but it was warm. The kind of place where an old man and his old dog could catch their breath. He unpacked the coffee tin, set it on the windowsill. Maybe someday he would open it. Maybe not. That night, as the sun dropped low over the Blue Ridges, Bill sat on the trailer steps with Sandy's head in his lap. The wind smelled like pine and dust and distant campfire smoke. He looked out over the quiet road and whispered, "We made it, girl." She did not answer, but she did not have to. Her tail thumped once, and that was enough. Part 6, The Letter from Denver. Franklin County, Virginia, September 24th, 2023. It came in a plain white envelope, the kind used for bills and bad news. The return address was typed neatly in the top left corner. Daniel Harper, Denver, Colorado. Bill stood on the church steps, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the name. He had not heard from Danny in nearly 4 years. Not since the phone call on Mary's birthday, the one that ended in shouting and silence. He had not even known his son had moved out west. Sandy sat at his feet, head tilted, sensing something in the air. "Looks like your old man's got ghosts, girl," Bill muttered, tucking the envelope into his coat. He did not open it, not right away. That night, he made a fire in the small pit behind the trailer. One of the deacons had brought over dry wood and a camp chair with a working backrest. Someone else dropped off a bag of marshmallows, though he had no use for them. Sandy curled on the blanket beside the fire, watching the flames dance. Bill finally pulled the envelope from his coat and opened it. "Dear Dad, I saw your face on the news 2 nights ago. A volunteer had filmed you and Sandy arriving at the shelter. You were holding her like she was made of glass. The video's been passed around more times than I can count." Someone said, "Look at this old man who walked through a flood for his dog." And I said, "That is my father." Bill paused. The fire cracked softly. He turned the page. "I have spent the last few days thinking about you, and about Mom. About the last time we spoke, the things I said. The things I did not say. I was angry. I thought you did not understand me. I thought you did not try to. Now I see how wrong I was. You always showed love the hard way. With silence. With grit. With your hands. I did not know how to read that back then, but I saw it in the way you carried Sandy through that flood. It finally made sense." Bill stopped reading again. His throat tightened. The firelight blurred. Sandy shifted, placing her head on his boot. He wiped his eyes and kept going. "I have changed, Dad. Got married last year. Her name is Joanna Vet. Funny enough, she loves dogs. You would like her. We bought a house outside Denver. Big yard. Room to breathe. I am writing because I want to come see you. Not just to say sorry, but to ask if there is still a place for me, even a small one. I do not want to lose the rest of the time we have. Let me know if you are willing. I will come. I mean it. Danny. Give Sandy a hug for me. She is a damn hero." Bill folded the letter and held it in both hands. He did not move for a long time, not because he was unsure, but because the H in his chest had cracked open just wide enough to let the light back in. Sandy looked up at him. Blinking slowly, he leaned down and kissed the top of her head. "You hear that?" He whispered. "He is coming back. She wagged her tail once, then closed her eyes again. The next morning, Bill went to the church office and borrowed a piece of stationery. He sat down at the little desk beneath the window, stared at the blank page, then began to write in slow, deliberate strokes. Danny, you have always had a place here, and you always will. I am sorry too. Come when you can. We will leave the porch light on. Dad, he stared at the last line a moment. There was no porch light anymore. Not really. But there was Sandy, and there was this little trailer, and there was a chair with space beside it. That was enough. A week passed. Volunteers cleaned up the worst of the debris. FEMA dropped off supply kits. A reporter from Roanoke came and asked Bill if he would do an interview for a local paper. He declined. I already said what I needed to when I went back for her. They respected that. Rachel checked in on Sandy every other day. The old girl was getting stronger. Eating again. Her limp was less noticeable, but she stuck close to Bill, never more than a few feet away, like she knew something was still unfinished. Then, on the first clear Saturday since the storm, a silver SUV pulled into the gravel lot behind the church. Bill was sitting under the oak tree, sharpening a pocket knife he had not used in years. The door opened. Out stepped a man tall, early 40s, dark hair graying at the temples, clean jeans, nervous hands, and behind him, a woman in boots and a soft blue flannel shirt. Danny did not speak at first. He just stood there, holding something in both hands. Bill rose slowly. His knees complained, but his heart was louder. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Danny said, I brought coffee. Vanilla blend. Bill laughed deep and quiet, the kind that shakes loose a lifetime of stubbornness. I never'd open that damn tin, he said. They walked toward each other. No speeches. No apologies. Just a hug, tight, warm, real. Sandy barked once, then ran to them, tail flying, like she would known all along. That night, the three of them sat by the fire pit. Bill poured coffee into old tin mugs. Sandy lay between them, head on Danny's boot now. The stars blinked through the clean Virginia sky. No one said much. They did not need to. Sometimes, what you save from a flood is not just a house. It is a second chance. Part 7, The Porch Light. Franklin County, Virginia, September 29th, 2023. Bill had not realized how dark it got outside the trailer until Danny strung up the porch light. It was not really a porch, just a few wooden steps and a handrail someone had hammered together from old church pews. But the light above the door glowed soft and warm, like a signal, like hope. Thought you said you did not need a porch light anymore, Danny said, smiling. Bill sipped his coffee, watching Sandy patrol the yard like a soldier on duty. Didn't he think I did? Guess that makes two of us. They sat on folding chairs in the evening air. Crickets buzzed in the grass. Somewhere in the distance, a radio played gospel music from a truck cab. Jonna, Danny's wife, was inside the trailer, unpacking a bag of fresh groceries and humming something sweet. She would insisted on cooking them a real dinner, not canned chili or shelter soup, but chicken with herbs, mashed potatoes, warm biscuits. Said it was her way of saying thanks to the dog that saved a life, and the man who did not give up on her. Bill did not argue. He just nodded. quietly overwhelmed by the warmth settling around his old bones. Later that night, Danny pulled a folded set of papers from his backpack and laid them on the table. "What is this?" Bill asked. "A plan," Danny said. "Something I have been working on since the flight here." Bill raised an eyebrow. "That so?" Danny nodded. "I know you have been living on your own for a while. I also know you probably want to leave Virginia, even if the whole place floods again." Good read. "But I think there is something we can do here, something that is not just survival." Bill leaned in, skeptical but curious. Danny continued, "This trailer is fine for now, but it is temporary, and you are not the only one who lost everything. There are families camped in shelters, folks sleeping in their trucks, people with no place for their animals. They are not just homeless. Dad, they are heartbroken." Bill looked out into the trees, silent. Danny went on, "Jonna and I talked. We have got some savings, and her clinic back in Denver is connected to a network of mobile vet teams. What if we set up something here? A small recovery camp, temporary housing for people and pets. Kennels, crates, tents, food, a place to breathe, a place to rebuild." Bill blinked slowly. "You want to start a dog hotel?" Danny chuckled. "More like a dog and people halfway house. And you want to run it here?" Danny nodded. "I do. But not without you." Bill looked at the plan's simple sketches. A map, a list of needs. It was not fancy. Wasn't government approved, but it was real. And somehow, it made his chest hurt in the best possible way. He did not say yes. Not yet. But he did not say no either. The next morning, they met with Pastor Evans behind the church. When they told him the idea, he took off his cap, scratched his head, and said, "Sounds crazy." Bill shrugged. So did swimming through a flood. The pastor looked over the open lot near the pine trees. "We have got the land, and the town's got the need." He nodded once. "I will help you." Danny grinned. "We do not need much at first. A few tents, folding kennels, portable showers." Pastor Evans patted Bill on the back. "We have got a congregation that has been praying for a sign. Maybe this is it." By the end of the week, the first donations came in: tents from a scout troop in Roanoke, pet food from a feed store in Lynchburg, a dozen sleeping bags from a retired teacher who said her own dog saved her from a house fire once. People showed up with open hands and bigger hearts. A widow who lost her house, but not her cat. A couple who'd driven in from Georgia after seeing the video of Bill and Sandy. They brought a box of treats and an envelope with a check inside, no name, no explanation. Bill stood back and watched as volunteers hammered stakes, tied ropes, assembled folding crates. It did not look like much, but it looked like something, like healing. That night, Jonna lit a citronella candle on the makeshift porch table and handed Bill a plate of food. He took it with a quiet thank you, then looked across the field. 3 tents were already full. One held a mother and her teenage son. They would lost their beagle in the storm, but came here after hearing they could talk to someone who understood. The other 2 housed older couples with their dogs, one a Dachshund with bad hips, the other a blind mutt named Murphy. Sandy, despite her age and her limp, had appointed herself unofficial mayor of the place. She trotted from tent to tent, sniffed everyone's hands, laid down wherever someone cried. She is doing what you used to do, Jonna said. Bill smiled, watching her settle beside the boy who lost his beagle. She rested her head on his leg like she would done for Bill that first night on the rooftop. Yeah, he said softly, but she is better at it. After dinner, Bill walked out to the edge of the clearing. The air was cool and quiet. He looked up at the sky, stars clearer than he would seen in years, and just below them, the porch light glowed against the trailer wall. He stood there for a long time. Then he said, half to himself, half to the night, "You were right, Mary. Rivers take, but sometimes they give back." Behind him, Sandy padded up the path, sat down beside him. Her tail thumped once, and the porch light stayed on. Part 8 Storm Dogs. Franklin County, Virginia, October 3rd, 2023. The report arrived on a Tuesday, just before noon, in a little blue sedan with West Virginia plates and dog hair on the passenger seat. Her name was Lena Parks. Mid-30s, clean notebook in one hand, leash in the other. A small terrier mix trotted beside her, ears perked, tail high. "I am not here to make anyone famous," she told Bill, "just to listen." Bill liked that. He motioned to the old church bench under the oak tree and poured her a cup of black coffee. Sandy curled beside him, tail sweeping the dust. "You always sit with your dog like that?" Lena asked. Already scribbling. "She always sits with me," Bill answered. Lena smiled, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and got to work. She spent the whole afternoon at the camp walking the rows of tents, kneeling beside rescue crates, asking soft questions and letting people answer in their own time. She spoke with Marlene, the widow who still kept her husband's fishing cap on her dog's leash. She knelt beside Murphy, the blind mutt who now slept beside a little girl every night and had not barked once since arriving. She even helped unload a van of donations from Roanoke blankets, kibble, rain ponchos, coffee tins. Everywhere she went, she listened. No tape recorder, no camera crew, just paper and a kind face. Later that evening, she came back to sit with Bill again. The sun was low now, casting long gold shadows across the gravel lot. "Do you mind if I ask about the rooftop?" she said. Bill took a long sip before answering. "I left her once," he said slowly. "Back when the water came. Thought I could make it back in time. I was wrong." He looked at Sandy, his fingers resting on her neck. She waited. 2 nights. Never moved. Lena blinked, then looked down at her own dog. "There is something about them, is not there?" Bill nodded. "They do not keep score. Just wait for you to come home." The next day, Lena's article went live. Not in the local newsletter or the Sunday section, but online. Front page of a national outlet. Storm Dogs. How a flooded town found hope in a camp of strays and survivors. She did not sensationalize anything. No viral headlines. No pity. Just stories of a retired fireman who crossed a flood for a dog, a church lot turned shelter, of animals who healed their humans one tail wag at a time. By Friday, the phones started ringing. First came the reporters, then came the donations, then came the people. One woman drove 8 hours from Kentucky with a trunk full of food and a note that said, "For the dog who waited." A retired nurse sent a check and a letter that read, "My dog waited at the front door every day while I worked double shifts during COVID. I lost him in 2021, but I see him in yours. Someone started a fundraiser. It hit 5,000 in a day. By the end of the weekend, it was over 50. Bill did not know what to make of it. He was not used to being seen. Not like this. He was not a hero. Just a man who could not stand to lose one more thing he loved." Danny printed the article and pinned it to the corkboard inside the trailer. "Don't get cocky," he told his father with a grin. "Too late," Bill replied. The camp grew. A second row of tents, a proper veterinary tent with exam tables and donated medicine. Solar-powered lights along the gravel path. Someone even built a wooden sign that read, "The Porch Light Project for Storm Dogs and Their People." Pastor Evans got choked up the first time he saw it. This is what church should feel like," he said softly. Bill did not reply. He just kept hammering stakes, lifting kennels, filling water bowls. Because that is what you do when the flood recedes. You build. That evening, as the sun settled low and soft over the Blue Ridge Hills, Bill walked the camp with Sandy by his side. They passed the teenage boy with the new puppy, a gangly mutt rescued from a collapsed barn. Past Marlene, braiding ribbon into her dog-esque collar. Past Murphy the blind dog, now playing fetch with his nose. Sandy moved slower now, her hips stiffened at dusk, but her eyes were bright, and her tail swayed with purpose. "Still on duty, huh?" Bill said. She looked up at him, as if to say, "You too." Back at the trailer, Danny was on the porch, fiddling with a solar lantern. "Mail came," he said, handing over an envelope. Bill opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, an old one. Him and Mary on the porch of their first house, holding cups of coffee. Sandy still a puppy in her arms. Behind them, the porch light glowed small, steady, warm. On the back, written in Mary's careful hand, "Some lights never go out. You just have to find where they moved." Bill stared at it for a long time. Then he put it on the shelf beside the tin. That night, he lit the lantern on the step, not because he needed the light, but because someone, somewhere, might. A man trying to find his way back, a woman searching for a safe place to sleep, a dog waiting for someone who promised they would return. And maybe, just maybe, someone like Bill who thought he would lost everything, until he found out he had not lost it at all. It had been waiting, just like she had. Part 9, The Promise. Franklin County, Virginia, October 15th, 2023. The nights turned colder. The air smelled of fallen leaves and wood smoke. The summer clothes were boxed up, and the campfires burned a little longer. Children now wore flannel. Volunteers brought thicker blankets. And Sandy, faithful, gentle Sandy, began to slow. Not just her walk, her breath, her appetite. The light behind her amber eyes, once so alert, began to dim at the edges. At first, Bill told himself it was just age. "She is a tough girl," he told Jonna one morning, pouring kibble into her bowl. "She has seen worse than a bit of fall weather." Jonna did not argue. She just crouched beside Sandy, checked her gums, her heartbeat, her joints, gently, respectfully. like one old soul greeting another. That night, she sat across from Bill at the fire pit and said, "It is time we talk about comfort." He stared into the flames, jaw tight. "She is not in pain yet," Jonna said softly, "but she is tired. Her kidneys are slowing. Her legs too. It is coming, Bill. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it is coming." He did not answer, because he already knew. That evening, Bill walked down to the creek behind the church, not the flooded one, but the real one, the narrow trickle that had always run behind the cemetery. It was quiet there, still. He sat on a low stone, and Sandy lay beside him, head on his boot like always. "You remember the barn in Nelson County?" He whispered. "You chased that fox all the way up the rafters. Thought we would lose you." She blinked slowly, her tail thumping once. "You never gave up. Not once." His voice caught. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a piece of folded paper, worn, creased, fragile. Mary's letter. She had written it the week before she died, left it tucked under his pillow. "If Sandy outlives me," it began, "promise me something. Don't let her go scared. Don't make her suffer for your own heart." Bill had carried that promise like a stone. He could feel its weight pressing harder. The next morning, he called Danny and Jonna to the trailer. "She is still eating," he said. "Still walking. But she is not herself." Jonna nodded. "We can make her comfortable. No hospitals, no white rooms. I do not want her last breath smelling like bleach. She will be here." Jonna promised. "With you. With us." Over the next few days, the camp quietly adjusted. A heated pad was added to her crate. Soft towels, flannel blanket Marlene had sewn from an old church robe. People came to sit with her. Some cried. Some just rested a hand on her back. Children drew pictures of her stick-figure dogs with hallows and capes. A young girl left a note beside her water bowl. "You are the reason my grandpa came home. Thank you." One morning, as the mist lifted off the hills, Bill woke to find Sandy still breathing barely but unable to stand. He sat beside her for hours, stroking her ears, humming an old tune Mary used to sing in the kitchen. Jonna came at noon. Danny followed. No one said much. When the time came, Sandy's eyes opened once more and found Bill's. She did not whine. Didn't he tremble? She just looked. Still trusting. Still waiting. And Bill, voice breaking, whispered, "You can rest now, girl. I am not going anywhere." Jonna did what needed doing, quiet, swift, kind. And when Sandy finally stilled, Bill stayed there with her, both hands on her fur. Eyes closed, heart wide open. They buried her under the oak tree. Not near the floodplain, not where mud would touch her, but high up, where the stars could see, and the wind always carried the smell of pine. The whole camp came. No speeches, just silence, and a wooden marker Danny carved by hand. Sandy the storm dog. She waited. She watched. She loved. Pastor Evans read a few lines from Psalms. Marlene placed a daisy at the foot of the grave. And Bill, hand on his cane, whispered one final word. Thank you. That night, he sat on the trailer steps alone. No flannel blanket curled at his feet. No tail brushing his ankle. Just the wind and the stars. He did not cry. Not then. He just closed his eyes and listened for the water, for the silence, for the echo of paws in gravel. And then, a sound. Soft. A child's laughter down by the tents. A dog barking in return. Life. Still moving. And from somewhere deep inside his memory, Mary's voice. Don't be afraid of the dark. Bill, you were always made for dawn. He looked up at the porch light. Still burning. Still steady. And for the first time in days, he smiled. Part 10, The Road After Rain. Franklin County, Virginia, October 29th, 2023. 2 weeks after they buried Sandy, the leaves began to fall in earnest. Gold, rust, deep red, they blanketed the camp like a quilt, softening the edges of things that had once been sharp. Bill swept them slowly each morning around the tents, off the steps, along the trail leading to the oak tree. Some days he found little offerings at Sandy's grave, a tennis ball, a painted stone, a note that said, "I will be brave like you." He never touched them, just nodded, like they were prayers. The camp continued to grow. By November, the Porch Light Project had 8 heated tents, a permanent vet station, and a waiting list from 3 counties over. Folks came with animals and hardhatch. They left with new footing. Danny helped with grant paperwork. Jonna taught children how to brush their dogs' teeth with peanut butter. Volunteers built a little wooden bridge over the wet ditch behind the church and carved her name into the rail. Sandy's Crossing. And Bill. He became something of a shepherd, not in title, just in presence. People gravitated to him not because he said much, but because he did not have to. He listened. He handed out coffee. He sat beside people who could not speak through their grief and let silence do the work. And when a new dog came in shaking, wounded, afraid, he was the first to kneel down, extend a hand, and say the same thing he once said to Sandy in the flood. "You are safe now, girl. I am not going anywhere." One cold morning, just before Thanksgiving, a small brown dog with short legs and big ears showed up at the edge of the lot. No collar, no name, just eyes too old for her young face. Someone tried to chase her off, but she stayed low, tail down, watching. Bill saw her from the trailer window. He walked out slow, hands in his coat pockets. She did not run, just sat and waited, like she already knew. He crouched down. "Well, look at you," he said softly. "Where the hell did you come from?" The dog inched forward, sniffed his boot, then licked his knee. Bill scratched behind her ears. "You are not mine." He whispered. "Not yet." She rested her head on his shoe. He stayed there for a long while. When he finally stood, she followed him back to the porch, sat beside him, watched the sun rise over the Blue Ridge Hills. "Not Sandy," he said aloud. Danny replied, walking up behind him. "But maybe she is someone else, Storm Dog." Bill smiled. "Or maybe I am hers." That night, he lit the porch lantern early. The little brown dog curled on the step. Children played flashlight tag between the tents. A man arrived in a beat-up pickup with 2 mutts and a box of old sweaters. Jonna made cider. The camp glowed. Not with electricity, but with something harder to name. Something warmer than light. As the stars appeared and the hills turned purple, Bill took his coffee and walked to the oak tree. He stood by Sandy's grave, hand resting on the marker. He did not speak, but if he had, it might have been this: "You waited for me through the storm, and now I will keep waiting for the next soul who needs someone. I am still here, girl. I still remember, and the light's still on." Final words on the marker updated months later. Sandy the storm dog. You waited. You watched. You loved. And now we carry the light forward. The end. Thank you for walking with Bill and Sandy through every chapter.